A lot of these GTM engineers who are amazing people are making less than a junior SDR day one out of school making the States. You know what I mean? There have definitely been a lot of people that have let themselves become mutually exclusive to Clay and have this fragility. Like, don't do that, guys. Your value is that you can click a button. That sucks. If your value is you can ideate the concept of the button that needs to be clicked, you're infinitely valuable.
The Next Gen Sales Leaders Podcast. Coffees for Closers.
Welcome back to the Next Gen Sales Leader Podcast. This is Ben Reed, and I'm here with Kellen Casebeer, who is the founder of the Deal Lab. He is also the founder of Clay Cafe, now being rebranded to GTM Cafe, gtmcafe.com. So welcome to the show. I can't wait to hear about your story.
Thank you, man. Thank you for having me. Super excited to be here.
So let's jump into Clay Cafe. You are now rebranding to GTM Cafe, a big evolution for you. Obviously, anybody in the Clay world is probably in your group. You have over there. How many members do you have? Like 1,000?
Yeah, it's like 1,300 almost now.
Yeah, it's crazy. And the amount of engagement you guys get in that community is wild. I mean, I have my own school community, and mine is like crickets compared to yours. So I'm super jealous, and I'm super interested to learn how you built the community, what it stands for. So tell us about the rebrand. Where did that come from?
Yeah, totally. So basically, the community started as like, I run a business where I do clay stuff, right? And so I used to have a co-founder in the business. When he and I parted ways amicably, it was basically like, okay, I'm solo building stuff. I don't want to just be by myself. And so I was like, I'm going to just create like a third party, like clay builders space. And so started building in there. I invited a couple of people. My whole idea was like, I'm not going to promote it. I'm not going to like push it. I'm just going to kind of like facilitate it, right? And let it percolate. And so I remember one of the first people I added, my friend Tenzin, right? He's like technically like a co-founder of the space, even though he never does anything with it, but it's fine. But like Tenzin, when we got to like 40 members, he's like, I can't believe we're at 40. And I was like, dude, you're tripping. Like, wait, just wait, you know? And so basically the space has grown a lot. And so a couple of things, right? A couple of factors to like the rebrand, right? One is the space has grown, and like the demand to be doing things in the space is just like immense, right? It's like people want to learn how to build a business, stuff that you help a lot with, you know, both in there and other places, right? People want to learn how to do sales, like how to close the deals. There's, you know, sales reps interested in like getting into GTM, you know, like engineering type stuff for their roles. There's agency, like there's just a million different things, right? The day one, like what the group was a Slack group with a Friday call once a week, every week. We've never missed it. And what we noticed is this Friday call, which is kind of like the heartbeat of the community, more and more evolved into almost anything but clay. It was kind of the joke, and not as like a not clay, but like we kind of were like, yep, that's a thing. You know, we've talked about this a bunch. We have like the ways that we all use it, but there's like a million other sort of adjacent pieces to the total picture of like how to do elite GTM. So that's one piece of it, right? The other piece is like, the way I would see it is like, there's a Venn, you know, if you think of the Venn diagram of like what is amazing GTM and what is clay, right? Like that's not an eclipse, right? And so there are some people that very much so like stylistically are clay people. Like they came from the sort of like clay wave, like they were doing maybe nothing before, or they're like, you know, whatever. And that's not disadvantage or advantage, but it's just like their background is one thing, clay comes out, and the value they're delivering to their clients is like very clearly, very sort of like linearly, directly, in some ways exclusively tied to that.
This is a break in the podcast to bring you our sponsor, RevyOps.com. That is REVYOPS.com, the #1 GTM data management platform for your GTM and revenue operations data on planet Earth. If you are using the modern stack of Clay and Instantly and Email Bison and RB2B and Trigify and all these various tools scattered across the wind, we unify all that data all into one place so you don't have any duplicates, a unified view of every single contact so you can see all the data and all the activities across all the platforms all in one place. It will allow you and your team to move faster, to get better attribution across the entire funnel, and to make a heck of a lot more money. Go to RevyOps.com, check out how you can get started today with me on a call where we'll learn about your data management problems and how we can get you guys to the next level of growth. See you guys at RevyOps.com. Go there now. It will be in the show notes as well down below. Let's get back to the podcast.
My lens is like, we've done creative GTM stuff since before Clay. Clay came along and has been a beautiful, amazing, life-changing partnership for our business. I love them. We use the tool every single day, every single client. And that's also got me into other things, right? Like I'm, I've gotten half decent at some RevOps stuff, right? We're using like a million other tools. There's people that are, there's similar types of tools doing similar types of things, right? Things change with the tools, right? The pricing changes, the models change, what things connect to change. I see things through a fragility lens. And so it's basically like, I didn't want my brand and my sort of like skill sets and values to just be seen as like any clips of Clay, or like GTM engineering is like the way that like sort of like the Clay ecosystem had branded it. And so there's a little bit of demand for it. There's a little bit of that. And then also honestly, like in a pragmatic way, it's just like Clay is their brand. And so like running any sort of entity where like my brand entity is tied to another one that I don't legally have permission for becomes a sort of like weird gray area where it's like we can start to like build reputation and momentum, and who knows when eventually it's like, hey, you guys can't use this anymore. And so I just saw it as like, it's clean, I love them, no bad blood, but it's like we have our own thing, the community's been its own thing, and we're going to continue to kind of like run with that momentum and see where that takes us.
Yeah, no, it's a fantastic story, and I think you did it with like absolute timing, perfect timing, because you perfectly rode the Clay wave up. And I think we're at this very interesting time with Clay, because I feel like Clay was the hacker's tool. Like, and I say hackers in a like cool way. I don't mean that like in like a hack. Like, I mean like somebody who's like, behind the scenes, like the cool DevOps tool that like nobody else knows about. And they've made they are just geniuses when it comes to marketing. I mean, I honestly have never seen a SaaS tool market as well as they have. The way they did it through social programs, the way that they entered through the agencies, the whole nine yards, just like, my God, I want to know who architected that. The fact that they even came up with the term GTM engineer, which I believe was them, and the whole thing, it was just like, it was mastermind. It's like, whoever like writes a book on this time in history needs to study their marketing, because it's just beautiful. Now, I'm very curious about your take on what they announced at Sculpt, because they announced quite a bit. And what I had a very interesting dialogue with one of their product marketers. I don't believe she was there from the beginning, but what they did, for anybody not listening, is, and anybody who doesn't know what Clay is, because there's going to be people who are like, what Clay? So Clay is basically like Airtable, Google Sheets meets ChatGPT endpoints within a cell level. So imagine you have your table and you have your columns and your rows, and you can by column go hook up to basically all these different tools and do cool stuff per column. And it's a waterfall enrichment tool that has all these different endpoints, and you can do cool AI copywriting in it. You can do merging of stuff. You can do data cleanup. There's so many cool little features. And so I'm also a big fan of the tool. I think they've revolutionized the space. Now, and they didn't find that positioning until 2 years ago. Like, they really like pivoted into it. But now they've gone to this next level. And this is what I want to get your take on, which is they have added this thing where they basically are creating Clay tables with AI, which is a very interesting thing that they did. And I want to start there because on one hand, on stage, 2 hours after this announcement, they had this crazy like GTM engineer contest where it was like, look at how important GTM engineers are. And it was like, let's hackathon it. And I was like, that was pretty cool. And I was just sitting there with my jaw on the floor, because I'm like, where do they find these employees to be like little MCs? Like, I'm like, these are professional like stand-up guys. But before then, they just showed you click a button and these people are not needed anymore. And so, I told them, I'm like, I thought the timing on that was wrong, because I thought like, look, they still have about a year until they're fully penetrated, I think, into the market. I feel like they heavily rely on us. Everyone there was a GTM agency. And so I thought it was a strange time for them to announce that, because it seems like they're kind of like undercutting the people that have boosted them. And so I'm just wondering, do you agree with that take? Am I completely off here?
Yeah. No. So I would say I have a slightly less cynical, but not that I think that that's the world's most cynical. A lot of my friends have the exact same, but my lens is like, so the one thing I'll say is like, I have rejected, like, you won't find me calling myself GTM engineer a lot. Right. And I think it's a great term, but my lens is like, I come from creative, like go to market. Right. I'm not an engineer. And for a long time, I've represented this thing, right? Hacker, hipster, hustler, right? You know that, like, right? This idea that like there's this skill set, there's this other frequency that exists, so to speak, that you add this to these like math engineer brains, right? But you know, the kind of see it as like math and art, right? Two different things. Math is accurate, art is expressive, right? Art isn't wrong, right? It does, but it's not bothered by being math, so to speak, right? And so to me, Clay, for me, I used to do like fractional VP sales and coach people on how to do cool GTM stuff, right? And so it's like, here's ideas, guys. I'll teach you how to think about things, and then you'll go do stuff. And the limiting factor in that was people who can field ideas and will go work really hard to go do stuff. And you're like orchestrating these teams of these people, right? And so when I first started my business, using Clay as part of it, it was like done for you, outbound message market fit testing. We'll segment your market really granularly. We'll write good messages and we'll test to figure out elasticity within the market, so to speak, like what resonates, what doesn't. Clay came out and it changed my life, because I was like, oh my gosh, I can program the way Kellen Casebeer's brain thinks. I can put it in this freaking table and I can run across 10,000 rows and it's going to do these things for me, right? And that's, in my belief, is the thing that happens across those rows is not a commodity. It is not a checkbox. What I do, what you do, what 1,000 other people do, no one's going to do my thing. Now, I don't think my thing's better and everyone else's sucks. It's just different, right? Like Van Halen, AC/DC, just like great bands, cool. You know, different music, right? Bluegrass versus metal music, different music, right? Like the bluegrass guy thinks metal sucks, but does metal suck? No, right? It's just a different thing, right? And so to me, I did not like GTM engineer per se, right? And this is like a personal gripe. It's fine. It's cool for Clay. I use it on my website. Like I'm a piece of the culture, so to speak. I support it strongly. But like my thing is, it's like, oh, now that it's engineering, it's valid in Silicon Valley. And I completely reject that. I'm great at this stuff and I'm not super technical, right? I'm creative, right? And so being strategic. And so to me, I just see it as like, I've believed since the get-go, like I am not a piece of a commodity industry. I'm a single, expressive, unique node in a marketplace of people. And there's lots of room for this, right? And there's kind of the meta of the thing, which is like, you know, like strategic, technical GTM and sort of like one to many, like changing sort of the relationship of like what percentage of your TAM outreach is handled by what count of people type stuff, right? Like that's like meta trend stuff. But so when I see prompter stuff, honestly, I'm excited because I'm a beat. Like, I mean, like I think that there's a version of there's certain, you know, even when I'm selling deals to clients, like there's versions of things people want through Clay that's like watch the YouTube video, check the box and DIY it. And there's no reason to pay my admin fees to have me do that. If you just want this like literal copy pastable thing that exists, my belief is that like humans will be able to build things differently than you know, the machines and maybe not, you know what I mean? Like I don't come from the world's most technical background. There's probably some technical people sitting here laughing at me like ha 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 ha. But in my heart of hearts, I don't believe in a world where like the engineers code away like customer relationship and interaction, right? I think of like the $1 billion one person company, like that guy still hires someone to go talk to the market on his behalf. He doesn't want to do everything, you know what I mean? And so I think that there will be you know, we're going to condense the amount of people that are participating probably in some of these things. And it might be sort of made more asymmetrical where you have 1/10 of the people getting 10x the earnings out of the equation or whatever. But yeah, so, you know, I mean, I think it's interesting. Like yeah, you know, there's a lot of interesting stuff, right? A lot of these GTM engineers who are amazing people are making less than a junior SDR day one out of school making mistakes. You know what I mean? There's, you know, so it's like there's a but, and so this is a big but, right? Is Clay has done a lot for a lot of us, and like they have their own mission, right? Like Clay doesn't exist for Kellen Casebeer, right? Like Clay exists like first and foremost shareholder value, like you have to, and that's not negative. It's just like honest, so to speak. You know what I mean? Like the wolf eats the bunny. It's not like negative against the bunny. It's like, yo, it's hungry. It's got to eat, you know? And so, and that's why I look at things through the lens of fragility is like, it's not like Clay's not doing anything to anyone, but there have definitely been a lot of people that have let themselves become mutually exclusive to Clay and have this fragility where when a business does things that businesses are going to do, especially when they're so successful and so impactful and all these things, like it just kind of makes sense to me. You know what I mean? And so I think there's a lot of people, you know, and it's kind of like if you put on like I'm the smartest business guy in the world hat, and you're like, there's all these agencies and they like went all in on this thing and then they change their pricing and it's like, Yeah, that's like terrible amateur business. Like, don't do that, guys. Like, and the idea that like us people who come from being like random sales reps and stuff and are like learning to build businesses around this, like, I think there's a little cockiness in the marketplace where it's like, oh, I was a good rep and now I'm making 3 times, whatever number, but just like some number more times than before. I'm hot stuff now. And it's like, hey, actually, you're like sub million or maybe, $1 or a couple $1 million business. And we're talking about the B's up here, I mean, bills. Mm-hmm. So like, so I don't know. I think it's a little nuanced, and I think like, I just know because there's some of this kind of like knee jerk reaction, and you're not doing this, like I'm not, but like there is a little bit of this like blowback that Clay's getting from this 100%. A bunch of people are pissed. I had to talk to my team and be like, guys, chill out. Like these are like partners, nice people who are like helping us. I don't want to be online freaking out over it, but it is true that like if it'd be crazy to think that it's just like they're gonna I don't know. Yeah.
So this is one of those things where it's like pattern recognition. And I think that the very interesting thing that I've realized about this is like super meta, so I'm going like crazy philosophical like matrix stuff right now.
Yeah.
So I just want to qualify what I'm about to say, which is humans all have different levels of awareness. And I think what's interesting is that when I look at what's happening with Clay right now, I see things that have happened before that I've experienced, and I'm like, oh my God, this is so obvious. And then I say it to somebody else, and they're just like, no, this is new. And I'm like, no, it's not. Like, I'm like, we're in this phase. And so with these particular individuals who are worried, I would say they might not be as creative as you, right?
Yes.
They might just be the button pusher. And so the vast majority, and this is one piece of about two or three other points I want to make on it as a follow-up, but they're not nearly as, I'm going to make some statements that might not be true for anyone listening, as smart as you, as creative as you, as forward-thinking as you. And it takes a very unique person to be able to do what I call, anybody would call product management. And people go like, well, what is a product manager? And this is actually a new term relative to like, is it a dev leader? Is it a lead engineer? Is it a CTO? Is it actually like a product marketer? Like, what is a product manager? And so there's whole books written on this, but the best term I've heard, which is kind of what you described, but you use the hipster or hacker thing.
Yeah.
It's the same idea though, honestly, which is you have the heart of a marketer, the mind of an engineer, and the eye of a designer. And that's what a product manager is. And you have to be able to jump between them. And I would say the thing that I learned about myself, my superpower, is I have all of those abilities. And so that's why I like to build software products. But it turns out that there is a large part of the market, and this is where Clay's positioning of like, clay, like you're molding something, you're creating something. They're tapping into this pent up potential of salespeople that are actually creative that never got to express it. Because all the developers and all the designers, the guys good with Figma and like with Illustrator, like they got to express themselves. Whereas like your lonely, SDR account executive who just like calls and like does these types of pitches, doesn't get to express themselves. And so Clay comes out and it's like, oh my God, I finally get to be a product manager. I get to design workflows and create these things and look at this thing happening. Oh my God, look at Replit. Look what I just did with this AI. So there's this real excitement, I think, because that's where the demand comes from, is this pent up energy of creativity. That said, the people that I think are uniquely positioned to overcome anything that comes from Clay in this new AI release, are relatively unique, because the ones that are good at it, I mean, they are the true entrepreneurs. They are the people that can build businesses like you. But there's a whole category, I'd say like the long tail, like 95%, they don't have that creativity. And so my concern is like, what happens to those guys,
Well, so sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, just to my lens would basically be like, they have been exploiting like a moment in time, and it was like fake to begin with, basically. Like if AI prompting one shots what you do for a company, you should work on having skills that aren't that. Seriously,
right.
Like, you know what I mean? It's sincerely like, it's just like the same idea of like, like when delivery trucks come out, it's just like as the scale of what can be done increases, there's always this sort of like, oh, like, wait, if Amazon's here, like what's going to happen to the corner stores? And it's like, hey, look, like the goal of the world is not preserve the corner store. The goal of the world is not like nothing about the universe owes you that you deserve to extract money from the universe for doing something that can be one-shotted with a prompt. You know what I mean? And I literally think that, and this is the thing that's actually really unfortunate. I actually think this is part of why this is happening, literally, because Clay, there is this, so Clay is also basically allegedly maybe going to be dabbling with some services stuff, right? And my belief is that what's happened is that a lot of agencies have been promoted in ways that are just clicking buttons, not doing much for people. And then people are going, hey, what the heck? I have this easel, I have every paint, I have every brush, I put my big VC budget behind resourcing this. Where's my masterpiece? Right. And it's like, you didn't hire a masterpiece person. They can control C, control V. That's it. Right. Mm-hmm. And if you got that, you're not going to get your own masterpiece. And what it's looked like to take advantage of the sort of demand asymmetry when like there are scaled up versions of businesses that probably won't be doing what they're doing 2 years from now. Right? Because right now that can be a business. In 2 years, it kind of won't be, because the actual sort of like elasticity of what they're providing is very low. Right. And there's people that aim at that. Like if your goal is like, oh, whoop, real quick, I could just do this, and if that's you talked about like we're talking about like building things, right? We weren't talking about what we get out of building them, like what, from the customer. No, it's like, no, it's literally the inputs. This hard thing on the front end is what we're all geeked out about. It's like overcoming that. And to want to do that is a unique thing. And 90% of the people participating in this marketplace do not want to overcome that. They want that to go away, just like the customer did. The difference is the customer has a budget and goes, I'll spend 10 grand for this. And they're like, yeah, I'll do that. And then they have this, I don't know. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so I just think that to me, there's this reconciliation going on where it's like, yeah, the marketplace is going to be a little bit smarter about what is actually helpful versus what isn't. The solution side, there's going to be a little bit of a sort of like, the truth is going to come out over what's going on. And my lens is like, people will end up probably where they basically deserve to be. You know what I mean? And if they don't like that, they should go do other things, and not in a harsh way. Not like the value of their people deserves to be there, but like your skill set right now. You know what I mean? It's the whole idea of like, you could have this amazing boxer, but they don't eat well and they don't train. It's like, hey, look, it doesn't matter if you have great instincts. If you're just like out of shape, you're not going to be a champion, man. So I don't know. That's my lens on this stuff, and I feel for those people. And I think it's like, talking about like woo-woo, but it's like a little classic like scarcity abundance stuff, right? Where the scarce-minded people aims at like the easy simplification, like how do I make problems go away thing. And if that's your thing, that's fragile, right? And the abundant person's like, give me all the smoke. The way my frame on my business is there's some segment of the market, they could work with anyone in the world out there and they're going to get fine results. Some segment of the market, they could work with anyone. They could work with all of us at once. They'll never be able to get good results. And in the middle is this segment that if they work with the wrong person, it's going to present as failure. But if they worked as the right one, it presents as success. It's the hardest segment. That's what I want to be known for being able to work with, right? And that's literally the opposite of what most like agency alpha is about, who you should go seek out, because those people are volatile. They are harder. The margin is leaner. Like there's a million reasons that it's a disadvantage. But if you want to be out there slaying dragons, it's like, there's your dragon. You know what I mean? And if you got like a, carcass on the ground, you want to go take a picture next to it and be like, oh, look at me, I beat, it's like whatever. So.
Yeah, and so this comes back to that matrix statement I said before, where it's like, I can see where there's very obvious things that are occurring. They're obvious to anybody who's seen them before, but if you haven't seen it before, you're like, oh, like this is brand new. Like, oh my God, like this is the most amazing moment of planet Earth, And so a lot of people have jumped into the pool because they're like, oh my God, Bob is announcing that he closed $1 million in ARR in the last week. And then like Frank, and it's like, oh my God, I can get into it too. And then everyone all of a sudden is spinning up clay agencies, yada, yada. And it's like so obviously a bubble to me. But I think the other thing that's interesting is, what do you do to protect yourself? So let's say like, okay, let's say it is a bubble. Let's just pretend like it is for a second. It's debatable. Maybe it's not. But let's say it is. What do you do if we go, okay, there's hype, Clay has masterfully created this demand, and all of a sudden there's all these people pouring into the market, and it's getting harder to get delivery, so the actual tactical delivery side is difficult. Simultaneously, like List building is getting a little bit more commoditized because Clay's making it easier. So therefore more people can jump in. Same thing with like Instantly and Email Bison. All these guys are making sending emails easier. So it's like, oh, button, button, button. So then the question is like, okay, well, where does an agency fit? And where does a individual within an agency, a GTM engineer, fit? And so I think people are probably scratching their head asking, what is the value add here? Where can I be of service? And this is like what I personally am trying to scream from the top of the hilltop, is that the positioning is so obviously clear to me, is be a systems integrator. The systems will keep on popping up. And this means that more tools, Clay tools, Trigify-like tools, platforms, you name it, it will pop up. I mean, NAN, and now all of a sudden there's this like workflow builder, ChatGPT thing that people are kind of talking about, right? There's going to be another tool next week. The thing that will persist, and I look for like what will stay true across time. Now, maybe AI takes it all, but I don't think so. Because I think the thing that AI doesn't have is it doesn't have access. And so access means connecting tools. It can't go and like, unless you give it carte blanche control of your entire world, it just controls your computer. You know, maybe that's where it goes, but I have a feeling that there's still going to be some type of ops involved. What is DevOps? What is RevOps? Ops is the connection of multiple technology stacks tied together in a meaningful way. Yep. That's what it is. And what I've seen at the highest levels, the Fortune 500s, is I've seen hundreds of millions of dollars sold on system integration plans, where there's literally a whole category. Most people don't know this because they haven't worked at this level, but they're called systems integrators. And what they do is they go in and they're professionals at like some ERP type tool, accounting tool, Oracle database tool, and they have the Swiss Army knife of like tool sets in their Batmobile that they pull out. Maybe it's Bat Belt or whatever. And they're like, okay, I'm going to go Gatling gun this up to the top and then throw a smoke grenade. And they come in because they have the tools and people don't know how to configure them and connect them and set them up. But they're all bespoke and malleable. And so I think the thing that stays over the long run is be a systems integrator. And for me, what I have experienced having run an agency and grown an agency is if you are an expert in a very particular vertical, you can price your service at whatever the heck you want. And so I mean, I have consistently closed $20,000, $30,000, even $40,000 per month type contracts. And like with upfront $100,000 money in the bank contracts. And people are like, well, how do you do that? I'm like, well, first off, I don't make the thing that's hard look easy. And everyone's like, what? That sounds so counterintuitive. And I'm like, no, but the problem is then it seems commoditized. And therefore everyone goes and shops it around. Whereas if I go in with my pitch deck and I'm like, look, here's the problem. And I scope it out with them and I show them all the edge cases and I make it look really complex on a diagram because it is complex. Anyone who's actually tried to do this shit. And I look at the CRM and I'm like, do you see how crazy your CRM is? Oh my God, you're going to have to deduplicate it and do this stuff. And then I map it out for them and I go, okay, this is a 6-month project. We have phase 1 here. We're going to do this. Phase 2 is month 2. We're not going to actually roll out. Nobody's going to even get a lead until month 3. And the reason I do that is because 1, it's true. 2 is it's valuable and people see the value because it is valuable. And 3 is it makes you sticky as fuck. Excuse my French, but it's like, if I'm just going in and being like, black box, you give me $5,000, I'll give you leads.
Yeah.
It's done. You're screwed.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, no, 100. Yeah. A billion %. Yeah. It's actually funny. So my dad was like an audio video guy, like his whole life, right? Like dropped out of high school. He sold home theater systems, stereos, stuff like that. And then he owned a small business doing it, right? And they were Crestron. They were a Crestron dealer, right? We had systems integrators. I work with these guys doing like, and it's everything you're saying. And to me, I think of that as like, that isn't an engineering thing, right? Like the engineers built the code, the integrators, it is a creativity thing. It is discretion. It is opinion, right? And there's aesthetic and style. The analogy I use is like, think of like 2 pizza restaurants, right? Like pizza owner A is like, Ben, I made the best pizza. It has pepperoni and olives and salami and cheese and they list like 30 different things. And it's like, aged Gruyere. And it's like, you're like, okay. Second guy's like, we take the flour, we put some water in it, sits there for a few minutes and, we stretch it out, we throw it in the oven, let it crisp up nice, little sauce, a little cheese, touch of basil. That's it. Right. And it's like, you know, to your point of like anyone who's seen it, right? Like anyone who's seen master expertise, right? The best anything in the world is not blah, 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 blah. You know, they're not yapping about it, right? It's simple, it's opinionated, and there's like a depth to it that is what you're after, and it's priceless, right? I also use like Singer Porsche. I'm like a huge geek for right now. It's like a brand, right? Or do you happen to be familiar with them?
No, I don't.
Okay, so Singer Porsche, Singer, it's in Southern California. They take a 1970s vintage Porsche, they strip it down to a bare chassis, they fly you in, right? Everything is cut. So they're one of their tagline, everything is important, right? They literally bring it down to just bare chassis, and you can every single material and shape, every single thing. They're $2 million, right? So it's like a $40,000 chassis that they buy for $2 million, and it's like, and they're so cool because they're really, you know, they're fast and but they're not flashy. They look extremely vintage. They use kind of like Eastery pastel-y colors. They look badass, and they're exotic-ish looking. They'll have like crazy houndstooth interiors, you know, so they do crazy stuff. But the idea is just that like they're not the GT3 RS. It's not like, oh, we have this crazy, you know, stripe and wing, and it's really subdued, but it's still clear, right? There's like this simplicity and the reserve, and there's like power in that. And to me, that's what, you know, again, it's like the best baker is using flour and water and fire, and they're making bread. And the best baker is miles, leagues, universes better than the median baker. Like it's not even close. It's literally, it's not the same product. The guy that goes, why should I pay $10 more for your bread? They're like, don't leave. Like, I don't like to work for people like you. If you don't get this, exactly, this can be super annoying. And the person that's like wants the $40 loaf and doesn't care that you could spend $2 and get the same loaf, it's like, I would never eat the $2 loaf. Like, I only want the $40 loaf, right? And again, to me, GTM, like, hey, B2B stuff, like, first of all, no one's dying, thank God. Secondarily, it's winner takes all, basically. Like, you are losing until you win. You have to spend the money. You have to do something. And a lot of these companies are in this position where they're like very scared. They're very uncertain. They don't know what to do. And they're being thrown these like cheesy, flimsy solutions that they kind of intuitively know aren't really the right thing. But like, it's kind of like, I don't know, this is what's out there. I've heard about these guys or whatever, you know, and it's like this perennial circulation of like, you know, so it's like hire them for 3 months and then them for 3 months, and you get the first 3 months of a bunch of different people. And to your point, you're like, look, my first 3 months, I'm not even going to try to compete with what those guys try to get done in month 1, because I don't care, because I'm not trying to beat them in month 2. I'm trying to get you to month 12 where you're looking back and you're like, God, I would have never, ever, ever gotten here if I'd done these little cheesy, flimsy things. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
It's interesting that you just brought up the essentially race car. I mean, it's like a Porsche, but it's a race car, right? And the way I describe system build outs as a system integrator is that in the analogy, when you show them, so in my pitch deck, the entire thing is selling the new world. And so my pitch deck is not, when I'm selling agency services, it's not to convince them of my brand. It's not to convince them of Clay. It's not to convince them even of whatever, cool tool or leads they're going to get. Honestly, the first thing I want to convince them of is they're fucked if they don't do something different.
Right. Yep.
And so it's like, I want to just start from the basis of like, what you're doing now sucks. Because the thing is like the number one reason people won't buy is because they're okay. And so you have to create a pain threshold that has been passed. And you have to first define what pain is. Because oftentimes, especially like right now, as people are like, to your point, they're in this weird fog of awareness where it's like, I know there's AI stuff happening and things. Oh, people are talking about this Clay thing. And in the back of their mind, they're just like, I need to do something, but I don't know. So there's that undercurrent of demand that's like there, but nobody's crystallizing it correctly. And so what I try to do within my pitch is I try to crystallize the fear into like this like crescendo. It's like, boom. And so for me, it's like my pitch deck is literally like old world, new world. And I show like Apollo and Sixth Sense and frickin' Zoom Info and Salesforce and all these things. And I call them scary names like big box data providers and like old school 2000 CRMs. And the entire pitch deck is 30 slides of literally just being like, this is the problem with that. This is the problem with that. And I just start telling them about the problems with their old stack. And I show them, look at Apollo. You used to get 6% reply rates in Apollo sequencers. Now it's at 0.2%. Have you ever wondered why? And I'm like, yeah, I have. And so I just basically just beat on that, and I make their weird, fuzzy anxiety into this like, oh my God, I have to move. At the end of that, I basically just, my solution is to what I call the new world. And it's literally just a system. It's a bunch of tools tied together. Now, that system happens today to have Clay and to have, some NAN workflows. But tomorrow it might be something different. I don't know, right? Yeah. But the pitch is the same. So then once we get that down, I have now effectively sold them that they need to change and that these tool sets are required. Now, they're going to buy those tools whether I work with them or not. The only thing I have to convince for the rest of that presentation is, do they want help? So this gets back to the race car, where I say, like, look, I'm going to go and build you a Ferrari. I'm going to build you a Formula One race car. Now, I can just give you the keys. I can be the driver for you, but ultimately it's your race car. And I want you to see how, look at how intricate the way that the firing pin, I don't even know if that's a word, or like the steering column and the steering wheel detaches. Look at all those buttons. And I want them to go like, oh my God, this is so advanced. And then like at the end, I basically show them, look, yes, this whole thing does give you a return on investment. Here's your cost to acquire. Here's your average order value. Yes, there's an ROI. And then I finally ask, hey, do you want help setting this up? And they'll say, I really do. I'd be like, great. Okay. So what I am is a systems integrator. I come in and I am an expert in all these tools. And to your point, there's 1,000 variations across all the tools. I know the perfect buttons to push, which price tier to buy. I know how to integrate them correctly. I know how to set up your dashboards. So I'm the guy I'm your race car driver. And at any point, if you think I'm not racing your car well enough, you're not winning championships, you can get rid of me. But it's going to take you 3 to 6 months to build this race car. Yes, you got the tire, and yes, you got the cool sticker decal, but it's all in parts right now. And we got to go build that thing. And that requires your input. That requires your team's input. It requires you to have the most basic things understood, like your offer, et cetera, et cetera. So I explain this to them, and that positioning is fundamentally different than, hey, yeah, yep, I can give you some leads. Yeah, yep, and 3 weeks from now, we're going to go live, and you should start seeing some stuff. The problem with that is that, one, if anything goes wrong, it's a black box, so you can't blame any other third party. Two is it's infinitely more complex than that. You have to learn the market and the offer and the positioning and the deliverability and all that stuff. And so you're not only underselling the complexity, you're setting yourself up as an agency to just get crushed in 4 weeks when inevitably the first campaign just gets imploded. Yeah. So yeah, I 100% agree with what you're saying.
Yeah. No, it's good stuff, dude. It's it's super interesting. By the way, something I wanted to plug, it came in my mind earlier. Bruno at Clay, he's the guy behind the marketing stuff. Like, and he came from Webflow, and when he joined Clay, and when like we first met, he reached out and he was like, yeah, Webflow. We had this internal goal to make Webflow developer like a role that they hired for, and they said like if we knew that like if people were hiring for this role, that it would make the product really sticky because there's this like synergistic effect between like a role, like this person's career is reliant on this tool being sticky. The tool is here to help the company with the budget, the company, all, and so triangle. And so it's crazy because he came in and he said, I'm like, oh, that kind of makes sense. And then seeing like what happened with Clay, it's like exactly that. Basically just that is like, to me, that's what and it's why when people like, no one denies that like the community, the people, the thinking, the energy, you know what I mean? It's all of that sort of stuff. And so it's funny because GTM engineer and like technical tool, like it presents as very technical, but I think it's like a marketing company. Like to me, it's like the marketing story 100%, because you would also you'd have a hard time going like, what is the capability that is like 100% unique inside of this that you can't do anywhere else today? I mean, ClayGen is like probably it's close, and there's other things, but like ClayGen's really good. But a lot of it is like community stuff, which is pretty interesting.
And here's the thing, this is where I'm saying that the history is repeating itself. And so he did it at Webflow, but then he did it at Clay. But there's so many stories like this in the past. There's a perfect example that I saw in the oil and gas industry with ArcGIS, basically $1 billion mapping company. And they're a GIS, basically a geospatial mapping platform where you can plot a bunch of lines, and they do a 1,000 little offshoot softwares that come off of this platform. But basically, it's a desktop software with the ability to load data and then to draw on maps and then create maps and stuff. And what they did was the entire departments at universities were like GIS departments, where it's like they became the staple. It's like kind of like how like Adobe became the staple for graphic designers.
Yeah.
And so when you go through school, you are taught Illustrator, you're taught Photoshop. If you go through school for GIS, you are taught ArcGIS. And so then all the conferences spin up around it, and that's what it becomes. Same thing with ClickFunnels. It's like, holy shit, like I'm a funnel hacker. And what he did was basically took landing pages and then turned it into funnels, right? And so I'm talking about Russell Brunson.
Yep.
So this playbook has funnel hackers like Clay engineers or GTM engineers, ArcGIS pros, which is just basically a GIS developer, and I could go on. And so it is marketing, and that's okay because look, this gives people purpose. They give people livelihood. The concern I have around Clay specifically is that, look, Illustrator is a tool that goes infinitely deep, and it lasted 20 years. Whereas like this whole like movement for the Clay guys, it's like you had 1 year, poof, it's just like complete. And maybe that's with all tools. I mean, you could say the same thing about Illustrator and Photoshop. It's just with the AI revolution, we're in a different ballpark here.
Yeah.
So you got to be more creative, and you got to have different positioning.
Well, I think sorry, you go.
No, go ahead.
Well, just to me, there's this writer I really like. His name's Paul Scalise. He writes under the moniker Lindy Man, right? Like Lindy being a concept derived from Nassim Taleb's Anti-Fragile book. And like the idea of Lindy is like, so Taleb wrote about it as a mathematical probability, like literally because he's a nerd like that. And it's like the likelihood of continued existence of something predicated on historical existence. Right. And something as Lindy means basically like the things that have persisted through time are very highly likely to continue to persist. And the more recent something is, the less likely. Right. And so you can think of it as like coffee has been like around forever. So we get all these little, oh, this is a new caffeinated beverage gone. This is a new, but coffee just, right. And so he'd use the terms like Lindy bet on this, saying like, I believe this is a thing that will persist. And to me, and so that, I geeked out on his stuff during like COVID era. I was just reading a bunch of it and stuff like that. And so it's a very strong sort of like influential, like philosophical lens basically on how I exist and see the world. But to me, through that lens, it's just like they're, creative, unique, like the creative orchestration of who do we approach with what and how do we tell them about it forever, ever. Be that person. If you are the person that is and so use integrator, system integrator. I love that because that's like it's a technology term. It's actually more like I'm just a nerd for the artsy stuff. So I go abstract always, but it's the same idea where it's just like, if your value is that you can click a button, that sucks. If your value is you can ideate the concept of the button that needs to be clicked, you're infinitely valuable, and there's people who want to like, and to me, the world's like an ugly place if we're just trying to like change the perception of what's going on to preserve what has been versus invite the truth that like time passes like unabashedly and the future's coming at us a bajillion miles a second, and all we can do is kind of in like the wisdom is like what is worth warranting to, and it's like, oh, it's like people, alignment, like clear communication, like just these meta skills that persist through not even and it's not even just like in work. It's just like to me, another good friend of mine, Dustin, is like big on the meta skills stuff. But I've just found like a lot of value, and I've been fortunate to see good returns, so to speak, on way more than most people I know, completely ignoring the trendiness of stuff. I fell into Clay kind of like basically by luck and accident in a lot of ways, but it was because I was doing creative go-to-market stuff, and Eric Noslowski was before Clay too. You know what I mean? He had sales technicians, and I was in his stuff, and I saw it. I found Clay because my friend who did other cool creative go-to-market stuff, was like that guy, so to speak, And so I think that like, it's why when I see these people who are kind of chasing what I call like the hollow skill set, where it's like, they don't really want to be good. They don't really want to come from anything. They just want to be able to like check the box. It's like, it's tough, man, because that just became a thing, and it's probably going to be gone in like 2 seconds. And so if you're real geeked up about putting your energy into like arbitraging the next little bit of time, I just personally believe that's not a fruitful way to live. That's like hyper reactive. That's, lacking just strategic. And, it's all of these things that I expect I'm going to be able to beat the hell out of over the, persisting into years and years to come. I don't care what changes in the background, because it's like, nope, we'll be here, so anyways, I love it. I'm very aligned.
Yeah. I think that if we just summarize everything we're saying is like creation. It's like, that is what's valuable. And so if your skill set is to push buttons because somebody said that they needed some output that is very defined, then you will be automated away. I think that's what it comes down to. I think where the value add is, I'm using, like you said, like the flour and then the salt and then the et cetera. And you're able to take the parts and make something that's fundamentally just greater. That's where the value comes from. And I think really, like, if you boil down, like, what's the skill there, or what's the talent, maybe it's part skill, part talent, part learned, part native to the person, is what I've been thinking about a lot, which is discernment and taste and discernment. So it's like part judgment, but it's partially just like your feel for what's beautiful. It's like a je ne sais quoi, like elusive kind of just knowing of what's good.
I think of it too as pattern interrupt, because like we know pattern interrupt is Lindy. What is pattern interrupt? Is like there's the idea of the average. The average is true, but it's not enticing or exciting or even like noticeable, right? Like the average, like what falls into like passivity. And so I just think of it as like GPT is like trained on the average. Like I think of it as like averages. I don't even think this is mathematically true, but I think of it as like it's trained on the average of what has been historically true. And so it's going to point at like the average of that trajectory. But if you're good at net new creation and pattern interrupt, you understand that trajectory. And what we're doing is we're playing a beat off of that, right? It's jazz. You know what I'm saying? And like,
that's a great point.
And so to me, that's why like, I just don't, it's like the thing I am aiming at I just don't believe it can be automated, because what I'm doing is taking whatever X variable is the tool set, whatever it's capable of, and just being someone who could, another way I'll put it is like a lot of my favorite music, there's like the moments without the sound, without the note that actually is what hits. Like I'm a spaz, so I can play loud, fast drums and I can be strumming every single 16th note on the guitar. But the person that can like hit a note and let it, ring for a minute and then, follow in after it, you're like, okay, that's mastery. Like that person has like taste, and they're like operating off of this internal music, and they're choosing to allow some, again, discernment, like they're allowing some of it to be externalized. They have every single 30-second note playing in their head, and they're like, yep, let that one out,
Yeah.
And so anyways, it's just why like, I just really believe that like, the idea of automating it, it's like there's this creation thing that I don't think will be competed with, and people like Jordan Crawford, stuff like that. It's just like, dude, you're not going to like, because it doesn't even make sense. Like imagine if you said, GPT, write me an email, and it wrote a Jordan Crawford sounding thing. Okay, then doing other good things would then be a huge pattern interrupt, right? So you just need to understand, like, what is the tool set aiming most people? I can tell when an app's built by Lovable, right? Like you're like, oh, it's using like those types of colors and that type of rounding, and you know what I mean? So if you want, so someone like me, if you're like, oh, I built you a custom app, and I'm like, ha. Or someone's like, I built you a custom app, it doesn't use the Lovable, that would stand out to me. But the AI that builds the app would just build the app. It would take understanding the pattern to beat the pattern, right? And so I don't know, maybe Kellen's going to get one-shotted, right? But like,
maybe we all are.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's like we're all just in the matrix at the end of the decade. Yeah, I think this is a Rick Rubin quote. I think I've even brought this up before, where like Rick Rubin, I think he's the music producer.
Yeah,
is that right?
Yes.
And so he has this thing of like, anybody who doesn't know what I'm talking about, he's like worked with some of the bigger musicians. Didn't he work with like the Beastie Boys and some other?
Tons of them. He's done like, Beyonce, probably Jay-Z, Kanye West types of, just tons.
Right. And so, and the guy doesn't know instruments. He doesn't know how to read music. He has no credentials. And he's just kind of like hippie bum kind of looking guy, just floats around. But he is this revered music producer. And the question, like he was asked once, which I thought was just like amazing, which is like, what value do you add? And he's paused and he was like, my taste, and I I just know when I like something. Yeah. And I'm like, Jesus Christ.
I think he even says, he goes like, it's like, he's like, I am extremely confident in what I like, and I am decisive, and it has proven helpful for other people. And that would also cracks me up, because it's like, okay, guy.
Well, but the thing is like, it seems like when I listen to it, at first glance, like anybody who hasn't gone deep into this like matrix of thinking around like where is value added, is kind of like, oh, that guy just got lucky, and now everyone likes him. But the truth is, he's a filter. So what is discernment? Like, what is taste? It is a filter. It's the ability to take out of all possibilities on planet Earth and distill it into one note, to your point, or one pause, or one brushstroke. And that is like what a artist is. It is a filter through all the possibilities into one thing. Whether it's systems, whether it's an application, whether it is music, whether it is just us talking right now. We are making music with this conversation. And so I think that that's like where, if I had to point anybody, like a simple prescription for people is like, go create your own music. And that means, well, how do you do that? Well, the thing that, and this gets back to something you've said before, this fragility thing, but you also have mentioned that you constantly are getting better, and you're constantly trying to learn, and you're constantly okay failing. And that's like Carol Dweck's the growth mindset book 101, which is there's people that have the limited mindset and then the growth mindset. And the whole idea here is like, one, just believe that you can get better. And then two, go on, like, as Jordan Peterson says, your terrible journey. Yep. And just be willing to go dive into the abyss. That's like every single possible mythological journey that has ever happened is horrible inciting event. Some type of like, wizard pops up who's like a guide, and there's a call to action for the hero to go on a terrible journey that has no clear end and seems like he's going to get killed like at every second. But you have to go on the journey, because that's like where it goes. So that's like starting one. It's like, have some balls, excuse my French.
And faith. I even like the word faith here, because it's so underrated to me to say I will only do what I mathematically understand. And it is so beautiful to say I don't see why or how, but I will do it anyways as if I believe it. And that's what placebo is as well. Placebo, whether you get the pill or not, if you believe you're going to get the benefit, you get the same outcome mathematically or whatever, right? And so it's like, you could get the pill, you don't think it's going to work, it won't, just like as if you didn't get it, you didn't get it, but you think it will, it's going to work. And so faith, the ability to actually sincerely with your being believe in a future thing, which is different. Again, that's why I say like the cope, like the scarce-minded people already believe they're going to fail. And so it looks different to know I'm going to fail and to bleed out slowly, right? Like you got this gunshot when you're like, and you're like holding your breath. It's like, look, dude, you're not going to make it, but you're not going to sit there and be like, all right, cool, let's get this over with. You're like, you're going to hold on. That's our impulse. Right. And I think that's a lot of people are sitting there and they're basically bleeding out. And that's very different. And it's sad because you can have like acutely, you hire the go-to-market guy and they're sitting there bleeding out and you don't know it. Your company's now bleeding out, right? It's like you're relying on that stuff. And if you don't know, and a lot of these people don't know it, so.
And this gets back to like the whole thing of like, well, what do you do as these people? Like, and it's like, one is like, go try to create something amazing. And even if it's not for the current position you're in, find something that you're creative at. I think that's like one. But two is like, to your point, like be willing to go on the journey. And then once you're on it, you have to believe. You have to have some type of like North Star and go like, I know this isn't going right now, and I feel like a crazy person, but I believe. And I will tell you, like we were talking about this on the call the other day. It's like, ReviOps, it's been around for like, in my mind, it's been around for years. It finally crystallized into an actual like thing where I hired somebody to start building it, probably around like August of last year. And I then went and spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on a complete belief that I wasn't crazy. That was it. That was like the only thing that I had was like, I think there's a problem here. I'm solving it for myself, and I'm going to just follow that taste. And I know I like it, and I'm going to go for it. And then I just did this post on LinkedIn the other day. It's like, you got to be willing to lose $100,000 if you want to be an entrepreneur. If you cannot stomach losing $100,000, you will never succeed above some very minor entrepreneurship. And so for me, for anyone listening, I am the most OCD type A person you can imagine. So super analytical. You would think like I'm like super atheist. And the reality is I'm much more spiritual than I would say any particular religion. But I will tell you, every day I get right down here on the ground, there's a patch of floor, I get on my knees and I make a prayer. And I'll tell you what my prayer is. It is, give me whatever I need to impact the most amount of people on planet Earth. I don't ask for wealth. I don't ask for success. I don't ask for happiness. I don't ask for any of that. I say, whatever I need. If that means I have to go through hell to become somebody different than I am now, and that's what's required of me to become the thing I have to become, to do that thing that I really want, which is to provide value, then so be it. But that, like, for me, like, as I go through the day, like, even today, I'm just like, shit, like, oh, why that guy not sign that contract? Or why did this thing happen? Or, oh my God, that, like, you know, whatever. Oh my God, this guy just launched a product that looks kind of similar to mine. It's like, at the end of the day, it's like all those things could be like, shit, gotta hang it up, gotta give up, like, oh, it's over. And for me, it's just like, you gotta have faith. And that's the most important thing.
I think I like the, first of all, I just like love that and like deeply resonate with that. Like I myself was not really like raised religiously, but I'd consider myself a very like spiritual person. Now I probably would consider myself like a Christian, but like it's very much so like via that same sort of like place. Yeah, it's just interesting because I think like going back to what I said about people kind of end up where they deserve. That's again, like I think that the people that are driven by things like that have already basically been there. And I think that the people that are probably finding themselves like the most rug pulled, literally probably in their heart of hearts, were aiming at, I think this is easy and that I can, you know, pull out of this in this way. You know what I mean? And so, because I would guess that the things you just said, like, hey, what do you got to do? You go like start to create. But it's like, that's going to be very unappealing for the people that don't deserve to be, you know, doing this stuff. If the person's like, hell yeah, I'm going to go do this. You're totally right. Like growing up, so I'm like a musician, right? I was trained on drums. I like self-taught guitar and some of those, you know, some stringed instruments for a little bit. And then when I was younger, my house got burglarized. All my instruments got stolen. It was like really depressing. And so I didn't replace them. So I didn't have the instruments for like almost a decade. And then when COVID happened, I was like, I'm going to learn to play ukulele. Like, I'm going to learn to play an instrument again. Right. So I bought a ukulele. It was almost like, it's like a joke. It's like simple. It's four strings. It's little. And day one of like learning a new instrument, what do? You like look up, what are the easiest songs on ukulele to play? Right. And it's not the songs I like. I was terrible at them. I couldn't even do it. It took a while, blah, 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 blah. But one day, you know, for the first time, you kind of get through whatever, you know, Somewhere Over the Rainbow, I think is one of them. You know, so you get there and you're in the first time you even like get like one chorus right it's just like people Clay, right? So that's why I get it, where you go watch an Eric Nowoslavsky video and you're like, that seems insane. And then you go do it and you're like, oh my God, that changes your life. But what people think is that they just found like a Clay thing. It's not a Clay thing. Again, it's a learning thing. It's like you actually just learn that you can do things. And with the ukulele, it was the same thing where I started doing it. Then I started learning, getting a little better. I started becoming familiar with some things. I can start to like pick some stuff up a little bit. I don't know any music theory. I've only learned to copy paste the stuff, right? Eventually I'm like, you know what? I'm actually too good at ukulele. Like, I don't care about ukulele. I actually think guitar is cooler. I just did this because this is like the cheapy, and I get a normal guitar, right? And I start playing guitar. Stick with it. It's fun, you know, and I'm not good. I don't know theory. It's one of the most life enriching things I do. It's very fun. And like, I just very much so think that is an analog to what a lot of this stuff can be and should feel like, in a way where it's like everyone want, you know, because like if I'm some random SDR and I hear you go, I 40 grand a month contract to be system integrator, it's like, what? Right. But it's like, yeah. And there's like this journey, and you just got to realize, like, you know, and that's where the faith comes in, is like, that's the thing you aim at. It does seem crazy, but you just got to be like, it's not crazy. That's what I'm going to get. And you literally just error handle against it. And you try, you bump up against something, you error handle, figure out what's wrong. Now you get a little higher, boom, bump against that, sort of 2 steps back, right? Like, boom, boom, boom. And to me, and it's like that. And I just believe you have to fall in love with that process. And that's like Dante's Inferno to me, which is like, the way through hell, you know, the way out of hell is through, and there's the 7 layers, and each one is worse, and you have to go through those to get out. You know, and it's like walking through a razor wire on your face. Like, you know, when I started, I just remember thinking like it'll be so much easier, so much quicker. You know, and the amount of, and like sincerely, there's just these moments that are like, no, you like really need to have something that you're like deeply, like sickeningly interested in pursuing. I think to put up with a lot of the stuff that it really, really, really takes to be as asymmetrically successful as people want. You know what I mean? It's easy to see like the up end. Yeah, but anyway, just point is like, I strongly agree. It's like people should just get out there and like start doing stuff and not be too transactional. And I would look at it like learn to fall in love with something too. You know what I mean? Like, it's like how much of a superpower is it that you've actually like oriented to be like, oh, this is actually enjoyable, right? My lens is like, I believe so much in where I'm going to be that my lens is like, it would be a travesty to feel negative about what it's taking to get what I will get. And one day I won't have the time. And so I don't want to waste it. And I want to be able to look back and be like, I know right now, like the struggle today is the acquisition of the thing, you know, and that becomes this like positive feedback loop of like, you will sprint into it. You are welcoming of it. You know what I mean? And you are willing to be like, how do I give first? Because you literally know, like, I don't know where, somewhere down there, it's going to come back. It's going to work out. You know what I mean? And yeah, so anyways, I appreciate you sharing that, dude.
Yeah, well, and like I would say anybody who's like thinking about this is like the most important book in marketing, in my opinion, on planet Earth. And I've said this on multiple podcasts, but that's like so important, so foundational, which is like, go spend your $300 and get this. It's Breakthrough Advertising. It's by Eugene Schwartz. This is totally a bootleg copy that I probably spent $200 on. But, you know, it's, I don't know how many, it's like a couple hundred pages. And it is like, it's like a crash course on human psychology at the most meta level. And it also just teaches you how to position copy based upon the awareness scale. And it just teaches you what the awareness scale is. And for me, it's like the awareness scale, which is like unaware, problem aware, solution aware, brand aware, product aware, et cetera, and then upsells and cross sells and all that kind of stuff. But it's like you're taking people through a buying journey of unaware to problem aware and so forth. But that same thing happens to, the reason it's so effective in copywriting is because it's true in any human endeavor. Product or not product, business or not business, you always go from a state of unawareness to a state of awareness. And so that once you understand that, anybody who's now like, oh my God, like what do I do? Great, you are unaware.
Yeah.
And so it's like we now have a question of like, what's the next thing an unaware person needs to do? Well, they got to become aware of the problem. And so it's like, how do you become aware of the problem if you don't even know what the problem is? It's like the you don't know what you don't know. It's like it's literally being blind. And so when you're blind, you literally like, anyone who's done this when they wake up in the middle of the night and they're like, shit, I gotta go take a piss. It's like you wake up and you find the wall and you're just like kind of like sliding against the wall. Now, hopefully if you've done it enough times, you know where to turn and you don't kill yourself. But the first time it's pretty awkward in a hotel room. And for me, it's like, well, how do you get out of it? There's two ways to get out of unawareness. One is God touches you on the shoulder and you just have a fucking epiphany. That rarely happens. So typically it's you either get lost, which is fine. And two is you find somebody who's a guide, right? Those are your two options, realistically speaking. And generally speaking, it's faster to find the guide than it is to just, get lost in the cave forever and ever. You're looking for that like cave dive wire that gets you out of the cave, And so the problem is like, well, where do you find anything? And for me, it was in books. For me, it was in podcasts. It was in YouTube videos. But another thing that like guided me was I just wanted to directionally be around people that were doing cool shit. And so for me, it's like I knew for a fact I didn't want to work for somebody else, but I knew I had to work for somebody else until I had the skill set and the awareness to be able to do things on my own. So for me, I first like intuitively just found things that I was naturally good at. And so I just needed some money back in the day. And so I just applied to some jobs, and it turns out like I was pretty good at fundraising. So I get on calls and get people to give me money for nonprofits. And then I just kind of snowballed. It was like, okay, I'm good at that. I could probably do fundraising for politics. So then I started doing bigger fundraising. And then I was like, shit, I'm going to be a professional fundraiser. That's like my gig. I was a political science, philosophy major, came out of school, applied to 40 jobs. Nobody hired me. Went and bartended for a few months, just like got completely depressed and didn't know what to do. Chased a girl up to Detroit, Michigan, got fired from a bartending gig, was sitting on my, I was literally going to be like a stand-up comedian, never did stand-up before. I was horrible at it. And I was just like lost. Like, you want to talk about lost? I was as lost can be at the time I was 23. I'm 36 now. So this is 13 years ago. And I like literally just like got fired this one day from the bartending gig, and I sat down and I was just besides myself. I was like, what am I doing with my life? I am the biggest loser. All my friends are going to medical school, are being lawyers. You know, everyone's going to Crush. Everyone's in finance. This person's making $200,000 a year, and I'm sitting here broke. I can't get hired for more than $25,000 a year. Just lost. And you know what? That was exactly where I needed to be. And that's cool. Like, that's cool. And so it's like, for anybody listening, it's like, just go be lost a little bit. Yeah. You'll find your way.
Well, my version of that too, I mean, it's funny because like mine is like, I have like a very weird, like both sides of the equation story where like I dropped out of high school my freshman year and I went to community college for my like next 3 years of high school plus first 2 of college. And then I finished at SF State, right? So I did 7 years of like college part-time while working full-time. But the idea was like, I was like, it's a long story, but I was like basically like a 4.0 type student before then. So it's not like I was like so it was like, it was very atypical that I left school and I was very like eager. Like I had an identity of being like a, you know, like a smart person, like a capable person. And kind of like, I would call myself also like, call myself eager, but patient. Like I was like smart enough to know I had to wait. But what I did is I spent a lot of time like just like spinning my wheels, going so hard, doing so much stuff, but kind of like patiently waiting my turn, almost like just waiting for someone to like pluck me up and, you know, you know, and so it's like, oh, you know, go. So I remember like my first SDR team, like, you know, I would do all my activity. I'd work really hard and I would like only be really trying to set like real meetings. And then like some of the people that were like the best on the team were just like the best at like, you know, gaming, CRM, timing type stuff. Right. And I was like, I'm not going to be, I don't care if it makes me middle of pack. I'm only going to work on calling random people, telling them what we do and getting them to say yes to us. Just like how I was raised, honestly. It's just like I have no interest in like the gamification of things, only actual real stuff. And then so then I was so eager, and so, you know, we didn't have a manager, no one wanted to be there, so I'm like, okay, screw this. And so I like sold myself into a full cycle AE role that doubled my comp. Sold myself to them going, oh, I'll work so hard, I will do outbound, I'll set my own appointments. And they're like, yeah, we need someone who does that. No one here sets their own appointments. I'm like, oh my God, yeah, hire me, right? I ended up in a company where like I was like, you know, and, you know, I have all sorts of excuses, but the point was just basically like, it wasn't an environment where like a really young raw talent was going to come in and just like energize themselves into making $1 million or whatever, you know what I mean? And it was kind of like, hey, this represented like, they liked me and they paid me pretty well, but like, I'm going to have to just sit around here for a long time and eventually I can be like a top seller. But, you know, I'm like, I'm too pent up. Right. So like COVID happened and I joined a really early stage company. Right. I joined this company. I'm not even kidding you. I didn't, all I told him was, I just don't want to be, I'm like, I want to do more than just be a sales guy. And he's like, okay. So I thought I was signing up to sell his product and do other things. On my like 8th day, I'm like, oh wait, we haven't built this yet. And they're like, no. It's like, oh, like, okay. Like, and you know, I had like, I was making less than the SDR pay basically. Like, I mean, you know, so I had this cool title. I knew a cool title, early company, figure out how to do this would be valuable. I made no money, right? It's barely scraping by. It was brutal. And I just bought a house. This was like, my wife was pissed. Like every person in my life is like, you're an idiot. I'm like, I don't think so. You know, we'll see. Maybe. You know, while that happened, I had a bunch of friends that lost their jobs during COVID because of like non-compliance reasons and things like that. And so I created a guide on how to become a remote SDR. I started selling it. I made a bunch of money. I eventually made it free. I've had like 1,400 people use that thing. Like I made more the year I released this guide, selling them for $300 a pop, than the whole year in my W2 job, which is brutal. And so, but that changed my life because I kind of learned about like scaling value and like the guide, like I wrote a guide, not how to be an SDR, but how to get an SDR job, which was like way more narrow, way more like specific. And so seeing like sort of like, oh, like I get like solving a thing versus like giving information type stuff. And so basically, so then I was in the early stage company. I left that. I joined a company that recruited me. And then on my 12th day, they fired me. Like, I don't even know why. I think that I don't even know why, honestly. It was weird. But I think that it was like I was the last hired salesperson. Allegedly, like they had missed a revenue number, but like it felt a little bit more like, I don't know what, but just like some sort of mismatch. Anyway, so I lost this job and it really, and so my whole thing, so I was very furious, but I was also kind of like, I was feeling uncertain because I'd been doing this stuff for a while. And I'd been kind of like, yeah, man, I'll do whatever. I'm just trying to like get there. And I was finding a lot of people who were willing to let me, you know, sacrifice. And none of these people, no one like did any wrongs to me, but it's just more of like, it wasn't, you know, where's my $500,000? You know what I mean? Like where's this stuff start paying off? You know what I mean? Like it's getting tighter, it's getting worse, it's getting harder. You know what I mean? And I really felt that. And I joined a consulting business, like part-time. I was, you know, and then they like really liked me. They made me full-time. I killed myself doing that. I got, you know, that ended up not working out. Started my agency and like, okay, whatever, by the end of this year, we'll be there, you know, 2.5 years later. It's like, you know, it's good. It's very good today. You know what I mean? It's very, very, very good today. But like, it's just it's tough. And it's like, it really, and now what I did do well is the entire time, I basically maintained a straight face. I'm going to learn, I'm going to contribute, I'm going to give. I'm never going to it's not sorry, Kellen. There's no, you know, this is what I signed up for. This is my dream. Like literally, this is my dream. And if I wasn't consciously telling myself that and aware of it, I would never, ever put up with that, you know? But, yeah, I mean, it's just interesting because my guide in a lot of ways was just like running my face into the wall. There's a number of people, you know, Jesse Oled, Vibov from Smartly. There's some people that super strong, deserve credit. Clay themselves honestly did a lot for me. So like a lot of these things, but it's just interesting because I will say, I think I was the person that was just extremely self-motivated, ran into a lot of problems, and it really opened up when I just said, I'm never going to ask for someone's permission again. Like as soon as it was just like, I'm not going to do that. I don't get permission. Therefore, no one can tell me no. Like, I'm just going to go do my thing and I'm going to take the things that I believe and I'm just going to will that into existence. And like it felt better before it got better too. That's the other thing. You know what I mean? It's like I knew I was doing the right thing when I'm like, this still sucks. And I'm like excited and more excited. I'm like, okay, cool. Like this is, you know, and I think that's part of like the entrepreneur actually like bug, right? Because it starts to become the thing that's like, okay, well, at some point you maybe like eat out of the like, you know, 22-hour a day type thing. But anyways, I just want to share it because I think that there's like, because I can imagine there's probably some people who are like, what should I be doing? And it literally might just be like, keep doing it. And it sucks. And it does. And it's just a path. And that like, and you might not have someone that's going to come get you on the timeline you want. And don't let that tell you like, you're not going to get there. You know, because one of my lenses has always been like, but every single thing known was like not known and then known by someone the first time. Every single thing was once built. And so you're not going to convince me that I'm disadvantaged, that I can't be the guy that didn't know it and bumped my head into it and figured it out. Like, I just believe I can do that. And I tend to believe more people are capable of that than self-believe that. And it's part of why my passion is actually purposefully not seeking too much help, too much resources. It's like, I like kind of just blindly running into the wilderness and figuring things out because it represents like a meta truth of like existence. That's like, you know, this is sort of
it's the hero's journey.
Yeah, a bit, you know, a bit. It feels like it.
It is. I mean, that's literally there's the book, The Hero with a Thousand Faces, but it's like literally the hero's journey. It's the reason the mythic journey. If you like want to like go on like a deep documentary, go on. I think it's on either Prime or Netflix, but it's like basically like the Tolkien documentary, and it just talks about how like the guy that wrote the what is it, like the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe?
Oh yeah. C.S. Lewis.
C.S. Lewis. So he went to school with Tolkien.
Yeah, which is crazy.
And there's a whole documentary on them, and they talk about the mythic journey. But the reason the same myth and story has been told across time is because it is the human experience. And the hero is the one that goes on the journey.
Yeah.
Now, they might die, but like the reality is that the hero never becomes the hero if they just sit at home.
And we all die. That's my lens. Is like,
right.
There's a start, there's an end, it's going to happen. And we have this thing in the middle and you don't actually win. That's the thing that like the scarce minded person is like, I got to be careful because I don't want to lose. It's like, you don't lose and win. You just feel, it just happens. It's experienced. And so in an expressive world, like I always say, like this song isn't good in the context of another song not being good. They exist completely independently of each other. And it's sort of, you know, again, the taste thing, like even taste, you know, it's like, what do you just choose to taste and discern of the life experience itself? And to say that I'm only willing to dabble in the like ease and the simple and the certain is missing an entire realm of frequencies that like, yeah, they're like trying, but like, that's the default of humanity. You know, you said Jordan Peterson, right? Like I actually strongly recommend 12 Rules for Life. Beautiful lens on this, right? It's like the default is the suffering, right? And to chase and find resolvement from that is this like is heaven, so to speak, as he would put it. And to think that you have heaven and are hiding from hell is wrong. It's like you have hell and you have a chance to chase heaven, and if you sit there and you cower, you're not getting it.
Mm-hmm. So if anyone wants to know what goes on in my mind, this is my my world. So I actually just happen to write down some things. I like to doodle. I remember when I was younger, I would go to my dad's office and he had these crazy things like this. And I'd be like, what are you doing? And he's like, I don't know. It just happens when I'm talking to people. So anyways, I don't usually write notes on my doodles, but I did. So I just wrote there's so many things you said, and I just want to kick off some kind of insights that I have that are built on top of what you just said, which is one thing because we're having Jordan Peterson a part of the conversation, is he has this great quote of humans were built to walk uphill. And it's the same thing of if you ever watch a working dog that doesn't get to work, like a border collie. I have a border collie, and she's just so wound up, and it's she gets anxiety, so she doesn't literally have something to chew on or something to run after. She just starts freaking out. And it's just any type of thing that needs to expend energy. If you are not doing that thing, you will become miserable. It's have you ever watched the thing with the train? What's it called? The one where the world's coming to an end and it's it's freezing over. It's the one where, what's the name of that?
I don't know the name, but I know you're talking
about. So it's a movie and it's a show, and basically they're on this forever train that just has a nuclear engine and it never goes out. And the whole thing is if the train sits too long, it will overheat. And so it has to keep moving. And that's the way I look at humans too. It's why is there so much forward progress? I mean, realistically speaking, for most of the modern world, we have what we need. You can't eat. I mean, I have by all accounts, you and I are extremely wealthy relative to most human beings. Any American, for that matter, any person who is living, in what I guess you'd call the first world, even if that's not politically correct, you're just extremely lucky. And so then the question is well, why do you keep pursuing? It's because there's something hard coded into our human nature that requires us to pursue. And if we do not pursue, we become miserable. And people go, why are you depressed? Somebody said something one time, and I don't know if this is true, but it sounds pretty accurate to me, is that suicide rates plummet during national crisis.
Oh, 100% believe it. 100% believe. Humans are wired to survive, not thrive. If you think of what's compelling, it's only self-preservation, which only exists in the context of threat. Without threat, we're not wired to actualize at all. It is not human nature to actualize, right? It's like you're sitting there and it's hey, you could, think about it. It's what opportunity? There's infinite opportunity. No one's going after it. But as soon as you think that there's a threat, no one's sitting still, right? It's why you light someone on fire for a quick second or whatever. You know what I mean? It's they're going to freak out. It's impossible not to. But the same people will sit there and they have diabetes. Do you know? I mean, again, Jordan Peterson, right? But he talks about the organ, when you get an organ, what's it called when they replace them?
Transplant.
Yeah, transplant. So something like 40% of people that get a liver transplant don't fulfill the prescription the first time for the anti-rejection medication. Right? Think about that. And so it's we are not our ability to logically, it's why we're not logical. The idea, and again, it's why I reject engineering as the GTM messaging. It's no, we way more primitive, way more ancestral. You know what I mean? And so to me, it's humans are wired to survive, not thrive. So if we don't have our own, it's why, again, it's we will find problem. There is no human experience without hell. Hell is the default. Do you chase heaven? Are you willing to do that? Can you muster up the courage and the energy and the other things to be despite this? You know what I mean? And so I 100%, yeah. I mean, it doesn't surprise me at all to hear that. I would assume that yeah. So anyways, I'll get all geeked out. I love this stuff. This is actually probably the stuff that I literally care the most about in the world is actually the human spirit and sort of the will to do things, because I don't care what's on the other end of that, right? Everyone has their own dream and stuff, but it's literally most people, whatever their most ideal future state is, they're not aware of it. They're not aiming at it. They're not trying towards it. Even if they did, they would run into one little thing and they'd stop. And to me, that's like, it's a travesty, you know, because again, it's like the time is finite, you know, you can't pause that. Like that is the only true scarcity.
Well, and this is the next point that you made earlier, but I want to get to it, which is like, we're saying like, go create stuff, right? That's the thing is like, but it's like, but I don't want to, right? Somebody might say, or somebody might go, I don't know what to create, or why should I create something, right? These are the questions that might pop up. And my answer would be twofold. One is what we just discussed, is you have to. Like, you do not have a choice. Like, it's like, if you want to be mentally sane on this world, you need to go do something meaningful. Now, it doesn't have to be creation, but it can be something that is more than you are now. Whether that's learning, whether that's something, I don't know. Just go build yourself. So I think it's just like psychologically required. But I think two is like, I think it's also where meaning is derived to a great degree. Now, people get away with this, like away from this with religion to a degree where they might go, if they're not very deep into the tenets of a particular religion, but they're kind of at the surface level, they go, oh, God will take care of me and that's fine. Now, if you actually like go deep into the Bible, and Jordan Peterson talks about this on his podcast, it's like the Abrahamic story where he's like literally like 70, 80 years old, which is back then he was like a child because he like lived to forever. But he basically was called by God to go on like what he called his terrible journey, which is like, in order to do that, that's how he became, basically he's like, if you don't go on this journey, you're going to suck and your entire people will suffer, you know, but you have to go on this journey. And I think that like, there's a lot of people that will just sit around and go like, no, it's okay. I don't need to go jump into the fire. I don't have to go like do these crazy things. And for me, it's like, no, you have to go on it. But I also think even if you're not religious, it's the way that you can derive meaning. And so like, this is actually funny that this is sitting here. So if you've ever read Nietzsche, so this is called Beyond Good and Evil. It's impossible to read. It's like the most, if you haven't read Nietzsche, don't read it. Just go on ChatGPT and ask him what Nietzsche stands for. But he basically stands for this thing called will to power, which is like, the reason they call him a nihilist is because he doesn't believe in God. And so he goes, well, where does like meaning get derived from? How do you create meaning if there's no higher force? And his answer is like very much like Dune, the movie, which is like, you basically control your destiny. Man controls his own destiny. Create your own core set of values and your own like North Star and go after it. So you can be a complete atheist and still have meaning if you derive your own source of ethics and say like, this is good, this is what I stand for. But the key thing that he explains is you have to define what you are going after. You have to pursue something. Now there's a different take, which is like the Tolkien take, which gets back to the faith thing, which is like more like Lord of the Rings style, where there's this great take of like, why did Gollum, or the little scary creature that goes along with Frodo the entire time, who is in a form a guide, why does he not get killed despite trying to kill Frodo like multiple times, right? And Frodo even says, no, he has a purpose to serve. Like he keeps on saying this with no reason other than like, no, I think he's meant to help us. At the end, if you remember, like Frodo actually rejects what Nietzsche is saying, and he's much more spiritual in the take, because if you follow like the Lord of the Rings trilogy, like there's like actually a deep spiritual world, and there's like these like kind of godlike figures. But basically, like, it wasn't man that was able to overcome himself to save the world. What happened was Frodo actually rejected throwing the ring into the fire, and he started walking away, just like before with Isildur. I think it was Isildur. He like basically says, no, it's mine. And that's what like created the whole like Lord of the Rings trilogy. And he stole the ring, and then he lost it, and then it fell into the river. And so the reason I'm saying all that is that what actually led to the ring being destroyed, what killed the evil, was a higher power somehow led Gollum to attack Frodo at the last minute, bite off his finger. They like kind of wrestle, and then for just fate, Gollum, not Frodo, falls into the fire and destroys the ring. And so it was actually like a higher power that led to it. So like, I don't know, like I guess I'm saying like, either way, whether you are Nietzsche or whether you're going after Tolkien's kind of version of reality where there's a higher power, you still have to go on your terrible journey. You still have to pursue something. And it's like, well, it's like, but why or what? It's like, dude, just figure it out. Like, go do something you love.
Even a really logical take on this to me is that actually parallels selling. When we were talking about selling, what did you say you have to do? Is you have to disqualify the alternatives. right? The number one thing you lose to is doing nothing, is being okay with it. So it's like you have to disqualify alternatives. How do you disqualify alternatives? Is you sell out for something you believe in. And so again, you don't deserve to win if you are not willing to do that. I don't care if you think you have to do it. If you won't do it, you do not deserve it. And so there's a lot of people that are too intellectual, so to speak, or too good to go, you know, no, you don't have to only, you know, you don't have to. All right, great. What do you do though? Like, I don't do this because I have to, right? Like you could do other things, right? You could go bajillion other things, right? But it's like, no, it's a self pursuit. And I think that is a piece of the resonant thing for people, is like, it's, you know, it's why they say like the founder story, they're buying into you, like all this type of stuff is like, if you are not being that person, it will never surprise me to see the smartest people who are not putting themselves out there, who are not willing to take a risk, who are not willing to like filter out stuff and be like, this is my, you know, unabashed opinion in this way, you know. So yeah, it's just again, it's like, because, you know, the Nietzsche version you gave, it's like, at least still it's pursuant of something. And I would just make the argument that across the belief sets, the people who choose to allow, you know, the way the analogy, what I use is like my enemies. It's like, I never want to let my enemies win. You know what I mean? Like I literally believe in like the human, like, it's like, you can't let the bad guys win. You cannot. Being miserable is letting the bad guys win. Giving up, letting the bad guys win. Like you can't do that. You have to be, it's like, oh, you know, they hit me in the face. Okay, you know, let's say you and I are, you know, enemies. It's like, if you hit me in the face and I look hurt, if I look bothered, if I look weakened, every single one of those is an advantage for you. If I can take that and I'm like, bring it, bud, like I'm all about it, then you're like, oh shit, this guy's crazy, right? And if I start to will that into being true, I'll start to believe it. And if I believe it, I'll act like it. You know, and you start to act the same. Again, we'll go to Jordan Peterson, but he talks about the lobsters, right? It's like the lobsters when they face off, right? At first they face off, and he's like 70% of the time or whatever, one backs off. Not the one wins, but one quits, right? And then the 30 that go on, 70% of the time, they start posturing and one backs off then, right? And then if they don't posture, they actually like pounce. They kind of like half go at it, but they don't really commit to it. And 70% one opts out. It's like tiny fraction of the percent do two lobsters fight and one kills the other over an actual disagreement. It's just almost always the person who won because the other person gave up. They decide, I'm the weak one. I don't deserve this. That's why. So again, it's like, I just think people are making their choice. You know, you say, I don't, you know, like I don't have to, just means I don't deserve.
Yeah. For anyone who's listening, the lobster story is basically where they did this test where they like cut off the claws of larger lobsters and like put it against smaller lobsters to see like if they could create a dominance hierarchy. It's all about dominance hierarchies. And we tried it with lobsters specifically, and basically they were able to show that like a very small, normally like, you know, one that would get crushed by other bigger lobsters was able to rise to that dominance hierarchy purely through like this posturing that you're describing. And to some degree pheromones, and like literally there was a whole chemical change in the lobster because of a perception of their relational dominance to the other thing. And it's a really interesting point because like there's a great quote that summarizes that for humans, which is like, don't you know who the fuck I think I am? And it's like, for me, like, again, I don't know where this comes from, but for me, like I always had this very deep belief in myself, like an unreasonable belief in myself. And you would call it arrogant, but it wasn't like I thought I was better than others. It was that I just believed in myself. And for me, it was like I will figure this out. Like, you know, I feel it right now. It's like, I will figure it out. And it's like, for me, the thing that has gotten me through most things from a sales perspective or in business or really anything is just like, I'm willing to go ask for things that are unreasonable. So it's like, well, how do you close a $30,000 per month contract? Because I priced it at that.
Yeah, no, 100%. Like, or the person that says that, right? My question would be like, how many times have you been told no to it? Oh, you've never put it in front of someone. Well, would you expect to have had, what number would you expect of zero? What number would, you know what I mean? It's like, of course. You know, so they're going, oh, I'm surprised you did that. It's like, you're going like, wait, what do you mean? Like you have no reason to believe, you have not earned the right to be surprised by someone saying yes to $30,000 if you haven't been told no to $30,000. Because if you've only put $5,000 deals in front of people and you win it like an above average versus like the average SaaS deal win rate, you're like, oh, you're winning half your deals. It's like, okay, it seems like you should probably believe that you can close anything that you ever put in front of anyone. Right. And I say this all cocky, like, trust me, this was 100, not was, is, continues to be me in a lot of ways, but very, very, very resonant.
So I when I was to that point about making a lot of asks, when I was going door to door, there was two things that happened where I was like, don't you know who the fuck I think I am? One was, I said this, I think, on another podcast, so I don't want to be repetitive, but I'll say it real quick. Is basically I went to the interview and they told me that the interview was over. And I told the guy, like, no, like, you're going to hire me. And he was like, what? Like, I'm like, yeah. He's like, dude, you're like just a kid. Like, everyone else is like credentialed. And I'm like, no, but I'm the best you'll ever see. I basically said that to him. I'm like, look, like, I'll put my money on the line. I'm like, if I'm not the best out of 800 people you have in 6 months, like, I'll give you the money back. I literally did a money back guarantee on a fucking 6 month salary. Yeah. And I didn't even know what a money back guarantee was. I just was like, I really believed it. And so what I would do is I would run door to door. And I say that story a lot because I think like the key thing there wasn't like just that I believed in myself. It was that I was like, no, I'm going to back it up. And then what I would do, and this is just like kind of just using like what I thought was obvious, was I'm going to just price it 5 times higher than what they're telling me to price it. So everyone would ask for like a 50 cents at the door. They're like, the training says to ask for 50 cents a day for the donation. And I'm like, fuck that. I'm asking for $3, And I would ask, and out of 30,000 doors, I got 3 yeses on that. It comes out to like $996 or something like that. Like it's, and the point is, somebody has to fact check me on that number, but I think that's what it is. And I had 3 yeses, and every single time it happened, I was like, oh, okay, great. Let's get you signed up. But the thing is that like, I got infinitely higher, because nobody even asked for it, infinitely higher 720s, infinitely higher 365s. My 180s was like 100x the other people because I asked for it. And so my average out of 800 people was like 550, and everybody else was at like 320. And they're like, how is this guy doing it? I'm like, 1, I run door to door. 2, I was like, I'm not going to lie, I cherry picked the best shit. Because I was fucking competitive, so I always got the best houses. And then 3 is I asked for a shit ton of money.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but it started with, don't you know who the fuck I think I am? Because I was like, 1, I'm worthy of asking for that amount, and I'm like, I'm just gonna try. And the way that happened for me, like, was at a prior role. It wasn't like I just figured that out. I just like kept on asking for more to this one donor one time at my first job. And I started at like 100 and she said yes. Then I asked for 300 and I thought I was pushing it and she said yes. And then I asked for 720 and she said yes. And I was like, fuck it, I'm going for 3,000 on the next one. Asked for that and she said, that's too much. I'm sorry, I can do 2,000. And so like, and then like one time years later, somebody approached me and said, what's your hourly rate? And I was like, I just didn't want to do it. And I was like, it's $2,000 an hour because I just didn't want to do it. And the guy was like, can you do 1,200? And I'm like, because I was used to people pricing at like $100 an hour, thinking that was a lot.
Yep.
And the guy was like, can I give you $1,200? And I'm like, sure. And then I decided to price at 3,000. And the guy was like, can you do 2,500? And I'm like, okay, I'm just going to start saying higher numbers. So that's how I've closed hundreds of thousands of dollars in like a single contract. It's just like price it like absurd. What's the Dan Kennedy quote? Like price it so high that you feel stupid asking. It's like, if you don't feel stupid, then you're not pricing high enough. So yeah, man, 100%. So I know we're like way over time here. Where I like to end these calls, and we'll have to do another one because this is like, we're geeking out. What is the number one thing that you like to leave people with? So we went deep on philosophy, so this is probably more philosophical than most of the podcasts I've had. But what do you think is like the number one thing people should know if you had to leave Earth today?
I think it's like, I wish I could attribute this to the right place, but I think it's like, oh God, I want to try to, I don't know where it comes from, but it's like basically like anything you ever want, take it and give it away to someone else in order to get it, basically. It's not even like, I'm not even giving the like saying very well, but the ideal of it is like, you have a lot of, everyone in the world wants things, everyone, right? Everyone wants something, people want things. And you have a lot of people that are basically like leading with like, hey, Venn, my name's Kellen, I want. You're like, all right, great, dude, I want, right? And if you just think of it as like, take your wants and like give these things, like don't first of all, don't treat them as precious. Treat the world like there is abundance. We're not scared to see things like leaving, but also just think it's like be excited about the giving. You know, and I've just found that like if I'm high faith, right? I joke sometimes, I call it little f faith for the people that don't like to get into the religious stuff, you know. But it's like have some sincere faith, go into the world and like serve good, and prove that won't give you what you want back. And I've found no people that has served me just literally more well than I could ever put to words, you know. And I think a lot of people would find a lot of what they're looking for doing that, even no matter how far from what they think they want that sounds. I just think they will find it. And so to me, it's like, go give away, take everything you want, give it away to the world, see if what you get back is not, you know, 10x what you had before.
That's awesome. And I think that's a great way to end, because it's like, we're talking about creation, and it's like, when you are in the world of creation, you're not necessarily, I personally am not, I can't speak for others. I would say I'm not in the realm of I'm doing this because I want something. It's more of like, there's actually a love of the creation when it's done right in some ways. So people ask me like, why are you building ReviOps? Like, because like I could just be in a Brazilian beach right now, chilling. Like I could be chilling, but I'm not. And it's like, why? Because I want to build something cool, like, you know. But what's funny is I built this agency up that I have, and I have all of these resources that like literally I used to charge like $5,000 for and like $3,000 for. And now I'm just like, hey, all my old competitors, do you want my resources? I'm like, you know how I priced $20,000? Here's my pitch deck. Here's my calculator. So like for me, like I'm in this strange giving mode right now with like ReviOps, because it's like, fuck, like I'm serving my old competitors, which is really weird. And now I'm like not taking on any clients anymore. I'm actually like getting rid of them because ReviOps is doing well. But I'm like, shit, I got like all this stuff that I used to beat you guys at. I'm like, you guys want it? Like, here it is, you know?
Yep.
So I'm totally like with you. It's like, just give it away.
One of my, one of the mantras I'll use, especially like, you know, when you kind of meet someone that you're like, we have overlap. I don't really know why. And I especially don't know the immediacy of it. Mine is like, it would be incredibly uncreative to imagine that you and I could think of our greatest wins together right now. And the idea is just at all times, like the future win, we can't even think of it yet. It's so big,
So
right? And so the people that are like treating every moment is like the win is what I can get now. It's like, you don't get it. It's not that. It's this thing that's like just so much bigger. And if you really believe in that and participate in the world that way, it's like you'll love the inputs, you'll love the outputs, you'll just world goes around, you know. It's crazy.
And I think like where I would end is like, for me, it's like the old Hermosi kind of take, which is like, I can't wait to see who I become. Because I think like when you have that mindset that you're describing, which is like the fragile mindset isn't just like all things end, but it's also like you end, and you today ends. And the person I was yesterday ended. And if you're not ending every single day in some way, and you're not like destroying the person you used to be, whether it's negative or positive, but you're destroying that person, then it's like, I feel like you are not on the journey. And so it's like, for me, the ultimate end here is like, there's the definition of success is like, you have achievement. Yes, you can go make money, all that kind of stuff. But for me, it's like the number one North Star I have that like I look at every single day is, are you fulfilled? And fulfillment is like just a knowing that you are the best that you can be, and that you did all you can, and you left it all on the table. And basically it's like the alternative to that is shame, which is like some belief that there's something wrong with you, or you could have been or should have been. And for me, it's like, look, if I don't become what I want to become, but I did everything I can say I'm fulfilled. And for me, it's like, that's the thing. And so that's a never ending game. It's like every day you get to set a standard, set some goals, and just go after it. And it's like, at the end of the day, if you don't hit it, fine, right? But like, at least you gave it a shot. So anyways, that's my little take. So where can people find you? So obviously, GTMcafe.com.
Yeah,
is that right?
Yeah. GTMcafe.com.
Cafe.
Yeah, the deallab.com for my website, which is mid right now. We have a new one coming out in a little bit, but
No, it's amazing.
You're seeing Kellen code right there. Yeah. But and then LinkedIn. Honestly, LinkedIn's probably like, if you're listening to this, you're like, this is cool. Kellen Casebeer on LinkedIn, hit me up there, send me a message or like comment or whatever. But I think that's kind of where like, that's where like stream of things happening is, plus gtmcafe.com.
Cool. for anybody who's listening, like, because there's people that aren't agencies as well, can you just plug the Deal Lab? Like, what exactly, what services you offer? What do you think is like a perfect fit client for you?
Yeah, we really specialize in helping people, basically, as we call it, find message market fit, which is basically like there's a market, an audience, there's what you do, how you connect to those people. We would call message market fit. So we help you, break down, segment your market really granularly, look at market, segment, personas, and angles of all these people, test and validate different like repeatable messaging processes, and sort of like walk away with what it looks like to talk to your market.
Sweet. Who is your dream client?
Dude, I have a bad answer for this. But
okay, go for it.
No, because so the thing is, like, we work with a number of different audiences. We like to work with people who want to figure out how to talk to their audiences. And what I mean by that is you have people that are like really early. So we just hit actually literally today 1 year mark with one of our clients who, like, he's very early stage, and he used us like outbound messaging to test and validate hypothesis of what he wants to build. And we're only now kind of like getting into like actual like commercialization against these ideas, but we've gone through like ideation, like sort of like serving people, beta users, so on and so forth. Early stage companies, people that are looking to like build their growth motion, right? Like founder led to team led sales is a pretty common use case. I really like, sometimes we work like bigger companies that either have like strategic segments of their TAM that they suck at reaching, or they need to approach new markets, right? So maybe they've like kind of tapped out current TAM, and to get to that Series C, they need to open that up. We're really good at like things like that as well. So there's like the classic 0 to 1 outbound motion, but we also do a lot of like 0 to 1, this product to this audience, new audiences, some of that type of stuff.
Cool. Well, everyone, there's going to be some show notes with links to Kellen's assets, all the way from the website to the Clay community, which not Clay. I'm going to correct myself. GTM Cafe. It is epic. So some crazy conversations going on in there. And then obviously you can check out the website. So really appreciate you coming on. It was, I knew it was going to be a good conversation, because every time we talk, it's just like, I can't even talk about like the thing I'm supposed to be selling.
Yeah, I know.
And I'm just like, let's just like shoot the shit about random stuff. So yeah, thanks for being on, and anybody who is listening, thank you so much for tuning in. The fact that you made it this long is like crazy. But have a great rest of your day, everyone, and I will talk to you guys on the next episode of the Next Gen Sales Leaders podcast. I'll see you guys later. Peace out.